Hello, everybody. It's me, Corey, Truly Evil Bob, on KRUA for the show you've been waiting for all day to enjoy your lunch break on. It's Capes and Lasers, the show about sci-fi, fantasy, and comic books. And we got a good one for you today. We'll be talking a little bit about Superman's legal status. It came up in the news this week for some reason, because of the worst article ever written in the history of news articles. I don't know. But we'll also be talking about X-Men. And I got an X-Men superfan here with me, Moses Garza, who is, right now, he is going through some of the training at KRUA to get his own show about mental health, which is great because, Professor Xavier is big on mental health.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's all about making sure he's in control and helping others stay in control, too.
Well, yeah, he's had some problems being over in control.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah. Okay.
Cerebro can't do everything.
But first, we're going to go into a segment that I call the Daily Planet Roll. The press is on the Daily Planet. We're going to talk about the news that's happened in the last week. Not a lot happened in this last week. We might retread something that happened in the week before, like, Star Wars getting J.J. Abrams back. I know Moses has something to say about that.
Oh, it just doesn't seem like we're going to be able to ultimately wrap it all up like we were wanting to with J.J. Abrams coming in again. I mean, I don't know.
Well, this is what I got to say about this. They keep taking really great visionary directors out. Mm-hmm. Not this one. This guy was the Jurassic World director, so maybe not him.
You can't win them all, but they're still making money, unfortunately or fortunately.
But they keep putting in these status quo directors in, right? People who don't push the envelope. And we're getting a new Star Wars movie every year.
Right.
And I want to be alive for the next 40 years. Is that 40 more Star Wars movies that are exactly the same?
They're going to milk it as much as they can.
Oh, my goodness.
Whatever director's going to, I think we were talking about it before, whatever director's going to play ball with them, and they keep on dropping the ones that don't seem to be working out quite right, which is pretty common for Disney.
Well, let's move to Star Trek. Star Trek Discovery had a preview for reviewers, early viewers, stuff like that.
Right.
And they have a review embargo right now, so there's no reviews coming out as of yet. But the reaction of the people coming out, like a lot of people, when they saw the trailers for this, they saw it as like an action film or action series.
Well, yeah, they got to pull the largest demographic.
And they were worried. True fans were worried.
Absolutely.
Because Star Trek has this feel to it about more of a thinking man's science fiction, not an action-packed thrill ride like Star Wars is.
I really haven't felt. I mean, I was a huge fan of all the shows, and I watched them even from the original Star Trek all the way to even if we go to Babylon 5 and whatever. Now, we won't get into which are the best ones and what have you, but I always enjoyed the science fiction part of it. And as we've been watching these films, I really haven't felt any of that has really come out in the films as it should have been. I've been frankly kind of bored.
This is J.J. Abrams we're talking about here. And he basically turned Star Trek into Star Wars, and that's what they were hoping wasn't going to happen with the series. But the people came out. They were very happy with what they saw. It felt like Star Trek to them.
Didn't to me.
Well, no, for the Star Trek Discovery, not for these new movies, the new Trek.
Okay.
But for the Star Trek Discovery series,
okay,
they are giving positive reviews in the vein that Star Trek is returning back to its roots, which is a good sign.
Here's hoping.
Yeah.
Oh, seriously.
So Punisher's first real trailer, they had teaser trailers come out, but this is its first real trailer. It is grisly and bloody and everything you want in a Punisher series. It's shaping up. I feel the hype for it.
Yeah, that looks very exciting.
After
honestly.
the duds that were both Iron Fist and Defenders, I am so looking forward to a gritty Punisher series. And look, my mother hates superheroes.
Not this one.
But she likes the idea of the Punisher. She wants to watch the Punisher. This is going to be a fun time.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be really great. I'm excited about it.
Because she does like Daredevil because she likes the legal part of that.
Okay.
you know, and then he goes out and tries to stop these things while he's dealing with the legal side at the same time.
Right.
And then in the second season, she watched it and she saw the Punisher and she was like, he's absolutely right. That's the guy. Why don't just kill him? Be done with these guys, with these jerks.
Well, I mean, you know what to expect with something like that. As we were talking about with Star Trek, you know you want the mental side, the science side of the science fiction. But with Punisher, you want the gritty, you want the dark.
Exactly.
And that's what we're hoping for.
It's the tone of the character that it's super important. Did you watch the best Punisher movie, by the way, Punisher Warzone?
I did not.
Oh my goodness!
I need to catch
All
up.
it is
catch
from.
up.
So there are 3 Punisher movies that were ever made. The first one was Dolph Lundgren. It was wah, wah, and the second
I
one.
remember that one from back in the day.
Yeah, it's not a bad movie. It's just not a good movie. You know.
I don't know. I've always liked Dolph Lundgren, but I've just never seen him excel in any role he's ever done, except for maybe Rocky. That was kind of it for him.
Yeah.
But now I've always liked him as an actor, and as a person, he seems to be a really intelligent guy.
I have found memories of the Masters of the Universe movie.
Yeah, okay, I feel that.
So there was the one with John Travolta as the villain, the second one,
no.
and that one was I thought it wasn't as good. Some people say it's better than the Dolph Lundgren one. I don't know about that. But then Warzone came out, and this movie had no advertising. It was under the radar. I went to go see it, and it was wall to wall, just blood and gore and him kicking butt. And his sidekick was there shooting him weapons so he could. Oh, it's so
That's
good.
a happy weekend. All right.
If you want a good Punisher movie, Warzone's the one to go see.
I will do that.
So Chris McKay, who did the Lego Batman movie, wants to direct a Nightwing movie. Now, this is like pie in the sky stuff. He was talking to a magazine and he dropped this little tidbit. He wants to make a Nightwing movie. He sees Nightwing's been underplayed way too much. When it comes to a movie, they're like, you know, Chris Nolan, Batman, and Batman takes center stage. And if there's ever an option between making a Batman movie and a Nightwing movie, the studios always wants to make the Batman movie.
Well, I mean, who doesn't like doing the Batman voice?
Yeah.
Everyone does.
But Nightwing, I have to say, I really love Nightwing.
Sure.
I love me some Dick Grayson. That's his secret identity, Dick Grayson.
You're
the
right.
first Robin. I don't know what you were thinking, sir. That's bad.
Yeah, no, that's
Nightwing,
completely true. Gotcha.
Basically, he is the first Robin, all grown up, if you don't know who Nightwing is. And he's basically like a younger, more athletic, more like gymnastic kind of Batman. So whereas Batman will walk in and just like brutalize and just like, you think of the Ben Affleck Batman where he just like destroys these people that he fights.
I never do. I never think of the Ben Affleck Batman when I think of Batman.
But when we go to the Dick Grayson Nightwing, he is nimble. He does acrobatics. He will jump over a guy's head to save the person and then kick the guy away like a ninja. I don't know what to say.
Right.
And he's, I don't know, he's good looking, like that boyish good looking thing. There's been a lot of comic books lately where Nightwing is being chased by gay guys like the Midnighter. And so I'm serious.
They love Dick Grayson too.
They do. They do indeed. Okay, well, there's so little news. That's basically it that happened this week.
Yeah, not much, but enough.
It's enough. I don't know. It's kind of sad for me.
Well, there's things happening I'm sure we don't know about, of course.
Oh,
always. Why? Because he's Batman.
Speaking of that, Dark Metal is the newest like crossover Batman comic that's there. It's got like the entire Justice League, and basically Batman is the key to a dark shadow dimension where there are multiple versions of Batman that come to invade
That sounds so new and original.
So there's a Batman Flash and a Batman Doomsday and a Batman.
Well, why not?
Like every
and
version,
they're all going to sound the same.
every version of Batman. There's a version of Batman for each Justice League member. So there's the Red Death, which is the Batman Flash.
Is
And
it
then
because
there's-
that Batman beat that particular character in that particular universe? Maybe
I don't know. Then
He
there's
had
a
to develop a
Batman.
new way to fight them.
There's a Batman who looks like he's Ares, like an Ares Batman. That's for Wonder Woman, of course. And then
Sure.
the Doomsday is the one for Superman.
Right.
And, you know, there's a total techno wizard Batman too, and of course that's for Cyborg.
Makes sense.
Yep.
I don't
But
know. Should be an
other things
interesting
that are
read.
happening is, before I move on, you can always join the conversation. Talk to us on Twitter at TrulyEvilBob. So give us your tweets and
Tweet.
we'll give you a shout out on the air. So this is the last piece of news I want to talk about, and this is depressing. So in the last issue of Superman and Action Comics, like 927 or something, I don't know. In the last issue of Action Comics, called The Oz Effect Part 1, it resolves this huge ongoing storyline where this guy called Oz has been, he's kidnapped Red Robin, who is Tim Drake, the third Robin.
Right.
He is also kidnapped Doomsday. Okay. But he's
Whatever
been
you can
basically terrorizing Batman. He's also kidnapped Mr. Mxyzptlk, and Mr. Plicklick got out and then blamed Superman and terrorized Superman's life. I don't know. Anyways, it's all resolved in this one issue.
Well,
And
don't you blame Superman? Let's be honest.
I'm
right?
gonna-
about everything.
I'm going to spoil the end here for you. The secret identity of Oz, which we all
Are you sure?
thought was Ozymandias, was actually Jor-El, his father, who survived the destruction of Krypton. Dun dun dun!
Sons of Krypton.
We thought it was Ozymandias because Oz and
No, yeah.
from The Watchmen, and we all know that The Watchmen is going to converge with the DC universe in this huge story arc. It's happening, people. But in the issue, Oz wants to show that to Superman that humanity is undeserving of his protection. Basically, Jor-El feels like he made a mistake sending Superman to Earth. He should have sent him to a more deserving planet. And to do this, he incites people to do their most base destructive acts, like poach rhinoceroses in the wild, steal medicine from kids.
So that's
And
not new.
One guy, he's a construction worker, and his job is basically being taken by quote unquote illegal immigrants, undocumented workers, who he claims are doing the job for cheaper, and so he's losing his job to them, and takes a machine gun and tries to shoot them all.
Jeez.
And Superman jumps in the way and blocks the bullets
Bounce,
with
bounce,
his
bounce.
body,
Of course.
then takes the gun away from the guy, gets the police to handle the situation because he has to go and stop other totally horrible things from happening in the world.
Sure. Leave it to comics to always bring in what's happening in life and just play it out as much as possible.
Yeah, well,
It's an
I'll
opportunity
give
for
you
us to see
other.
it,
I'll give
yeah.
you other examples that happened in Marvel with Captain America. He did it during the Nixon administration. He stopped being Captain America because of what was happening in the Nixon administration. He was ashamed. He felt he could not represent American values with this scandal happening at the highest levels,
Right.
and so that he became nomad after that. But then he came. They always come back to their roots after a
of
while.
course. Yeah.
But Breitbart,
Which our roots in America is usually the dollar, right? And that's what it ends up coming down to. We still want to make money, so we got to bring the comic books back.
So Breitbart wrote an article about this issue of Superman, calling Superman an SJW, a social justice warrior.
Right.
So basically derogatory and basically hating on Superman, saying that, oh, he renounced his American citizenship a couple years back. He didn't renounce it, more as he said he was a citizen of the world. He just doesn't protect America. He protects the planet.
You know, if we
Everyone.
could all do that.
all
That'd
of
be
us,
great.
all of us equally. And of course, this enrages the people at Breitbart.
Yeah.
And
Right, especially in a time like now where patriotism is what it's all about, and
Yeah.
the saying of patriotism anyway.
Breitbart is the home of Bannon, Steve Bannon, who prides himself on being a nationalist. And nationalism means to cut yourself off from the rest of the world to focus on your own nation. And on the surface, that sounds like a good idea.
No, it sounds like a horrible idea, Corey.
Well,
it does to me.
On the surface, when you start cutting into it, you get some really bad stuff. Well, you know, it's like, well, why give all these, why give so much foreign aid to all these countries when we have starving homeless people here that we can work on and help? That sounds like a good idea, but that's not how it works in practice.
No, it
we
doesn't.
take away that money from those other countries, and we still don't help the homeless here because
That's more like how it works.
Yeah, that's exactly more. But of course, Breitbart is very upset at Superman saving these illegal immigrants because he was supposed to let them get shot. I'm not sure.
I guess.
Like, Breitbart Superman would like stand by with his arms crossed heroically,
while
being
saying,
like,
"America,
this is what you get for coming in illegally."
how dare thee? I don't know why he says "thee," but he does.
But he also, also talked about a little bit about how Superman renounced his U.S. citizenship, how Superman isn't a U.S. citizen. And
Well, you know, I thought that was a long time coming.
Some people might say that he was always an immigrant. So
Right.
we were talking earlier that you think he's a dreamer.
Right. No, I do. I think that Superman was originally Hispanic. I mean, if you really think about it, because the dark hair and I mean, sure enough, I mean, I have Hispanic background. My grandma had blonde hair and green eyes, being Mexican and everything. So I think Superman comes from the same venue of the Aztec. We were strong people in the background. So I don't know. I think he was. I think he is a dreamer at heart, just like all the rest of us. And that's been a big deal lately.
Not even a dreamer at heart. I think he is a dreamer in actuality.
Okay.
So the definition of a dreamer is someone who was brought here as a kid. They didn't have a choice in coming here.
Right.
They were brought up with American values and think of themselves as Americans. They take part in the community through they go to college here, they serve in the military here, and they hold down jobs here. They have houses, they contribute to the economy. They're in every way American except for the fact that they weren't born here.
Right. Living the dream.
This is Superman.
That's the dream, right? For us to come in and make America better.
Yeah. Superman was brought here by his parents through no fault of his own and grew up here believing that he was an American. But there's a lot of more wonky legal issues that we're going to get into about this. And we'll do that after the break. I got to run some PSAs here, and we'll do a little music. And then we'll come back, and we'll talk about the actual reality of Superman's legal status.
Okay.
And some X-Men stuff. We're talking about Superman. I'm here with Moses Garza. He is looking to create a new show here on KRUA about mental health.
Mental health. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Well, to me.
Well, it's a very important subject. I have a lot of people in my life who has gone through things with their mental health in their life. So I know how it can really impact a person's life and that sort of thing.
It's not uncommon, but just think about how many superheroes and superheroines would be much more well-adjusted if they had a good counselor in their life.
You're absolutely right. I have friends, like one of the things that is common among my friends is PTSD. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I like to cheer up my friends when they have PTSD. It's like, oh yeah, I have PTSD, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know who else has PTSD?
Batman.
Exactly! Batman has PTSD. So you shouldn't be ashamed of that.
No,
Because also Wolverine has super
oh my
PTSD.
gosh, so much. I don't know. Wolverine is kind of out of my range of assistance, but somebody might be able to help him. Freud, maybe.
So we were talking about, when we left, we were talking about Superman's legal status.
Right.
Is he an immigrant for real? And it depends on which Superman you're talking about, because there have been several iterations of Superman. So the original Superman landed way back in the 1930s. So, well, his issue came out in the 1930s. So that was like 20 years before that when he was a baby and picked up by the Kents. So that's like the 1910s. And they played fast and loose with adoption back then. There weren't the records could be fudged, all sorts of stuff.
Which made sense. I mean, right, if you're going to have an alien come in, when would you want to introduce him anyway? Back when they weren't keeping as good track of the records.
Yeah, right?
Bring them in, sucker.
But then they reimagined him. So when World War II happened, superhero comics kind of weren't as popular. Cowboys, were very popular, and war comics were very popular. Superheroes, yeah. But after that, they tried to reimagine all the characters again, and this was the Silver Age of comics.
Right.
So Superman came back with a new origin, well, the same origin, just slightly tweaked, right? They said he was born later on to make him more of the age that you want him to be.
Right, to connect with the current time.
So what they used here is the Nationality Act of the 1940s. It's a U.S. law that clarifies nationality standards. I'm going to read this off the internet here, just so you know. Of interest of a founding statute which states a child of unknown parents is conclusively presumed to be a U.S. citizen if found in the United States when under 5 years of age, unless foreign birth is established before he reaches of age 21. So there you go. Superman has citizenship from the Nationality Act of 1940.
He slipped through the red tape. That's perfect.
Yeah. Well,
I still like the original idea better, where he just, there was no tape. That seems to make a lot more sense. But, you gotta have some rules, I guess.
As long as the Kents never spilled the beans to the U.S. government,
well, yeah,
then he's perfectly legal.
That's right.
And when he was Superman, he's already above the age of 21, and he revealed it to the world, and he's still a U.S. citizen, but he is also a citizen of Krypton. I don't know.
Right.
Can you be a citizen of Krypton anymore?
Let's be fair here. Okay. We're talking about Clark as a U.S. citizen or Superman? Because really Superman shouldn't be... he's very American with his colors. But
so Clark... you can't really talk about Clark because he is super secretive. There have been... In Smallville, his records were changed. Like, the Kents have created this huge conspiracy around Clark Kent to make sure that he can live a normal life. Okay. We're talking about Superman, the icon. You know, the person, because no one knows Clark is an alien from another planet. Everybody knows that Superman is an alien.
So it makes
from
sense that
planet.
Clark would be an American then.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. But why does Superman have to be anything? Why can't he be what
well,
supposedly he
in
is
Action
now?
Comics 900, a couple years back, he renounced his U.S. citizenship and declared himself a citizen of the world.
Right.
Because he felt that, by the way, this was back in the Bush years too. So you remember what I was saying about Captain America and how he felt that the United States didn't live up to its standards because of what was going on in the Nixon administration.
Well, these comic book writers have been our pundits. Absolutely.
The same thing was kind of happening with the Bush administration and the perpetual war that we are still in. And
and he's not Batman.
And so they made Superman a citizen of the world. That way, if the United States is doing anything morally wrong, Superman can stand up to the United States.
That way, if we're taken over by France, Superman can still be Superman. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing. Also in the Silver Age, he was given honorary citizenship by Congress. So that happened.
Yeah. Happened.
But in the 1980s, they reimagined Superman again. Mm-hmm. After a Crisis on Infinite Earths series, they reimagined all of the characters. And this time, his genetic material was placed in a birthing matrix. If you watch the Man of Steel movie,
that's the best way to start your day, to be honest.
Did you see the Man of Steel movie?
I believe so.
So in it, they talked about a birthing matrix, that all of Kryptonians are genetically engineered and birthed out of they're all test tube babies.
Right.
And in the movie, Superman Kal-El was the only one of a natural birth and was sent to Earth. Well, that's a spin on what happened post-Crisis Superman, where his genetic material was put into the birthing matrix. And when it landed on Earth, he was born out of the matrix. So technically he was born on U.S. soil. And this led to an Elseworld storyline called President Superman.
Yes, I like that.
And they used that interpretation of the law, of Superman's origin, to say that he is a naturally born citizen.
What do you mean, Congress, you're going to veto? No, it's not happening.
Heat vision, all of you.
That's right. That's right. No, yeah, that sounds like fun.
Though I really don't like that. I really don't like that. I like the movie version. Like, he was born on Krypton. He's an immigrant. That makes, even though
It
I
seems
like
to appeal to the larger demographic
Yeah.
of the world, which we're all on.
But post-Crisis Superman, I like a lot. I like his power set. Like before the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Superman had like a bazillion superpowers. After the Crisis on Infinite Earths, he had the power set that we're all used to, which is invulnerability, heat vision, cold breath, flight.
Is that not enough?
Super strength and super speed.
Invulnerability. That's
and
everything right there.
And X-ray vision.
And X-ray vision.
But before that, he had
The one least talked about.
He had like, oh God, so many superpowers. He had telepathy. He had hypnotism. He had time control. Have you ever watched the old Donner movies where Superman just started having weird superpowers? Like he would throw his shield off his chest and become saran wrap.
Gratefully, no.
In Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, he has rebuild the Great Wall of China vision.
Ah.
A very, very niche superpower.
Yeah.
Basically, the evil villain destroyed the Great Wall of China, and Superman flies in and looks at the Great Wall of China. Like, you see his vision scan up and down, and as he's doing it, the Great Wall of China is just rebuilding itself back as if by magic.
Well, and isn't that vaguely some of the fears that people have about immigrants, that somehow they can do these amazing things that we can't do or whatever?
I don't want to sound racist. I'm a white guy. I'm just a white guy. But I was
so white, everybody.
I'm from Texas.
Oh, me too. I don't know if we said that before.
San Antonio.
Yeah. No, I'm from You're from San Antonio. I'm from Fort Worth. Yeah, right on.
Oh, too bad. Fort Worth.
Oh, you stop it. Outside of Texas, we all love each other. You know that's true. Anyway, go ahead.
At least you're not from Lubbock.
At least I'm not from Lubbock, yeah. Or Houston. God bless Texas.
But the magic Mexican woman. Yeah, you're just like, that's something that exists, right?
The magic Mexican.
The magic,
okay.
the old Mexican woman that can like put a curse on you or a hex, or she knows things about, angels or stuff.
If it weren't for my background being so deep into Protestantism, is my history, I would probably have a magic Mexican grandma.
Catholic, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it would have been.
If you're not a Protestant.
Right, exactly. And all the paganism that went along with it, because the Catholicism just integrated it all.
So I had a coworker, and he had a magic Mexican grandma.
Magic Mexican grandma.
He did.
It's a thing, everybody.
Let's move on from this.
Oh, no, they make the best menudo. Y la chancla. Watch out for la chancla.
So you love the X-Men. You're an X-Men super fan, right?
I'm a big X-Men fan. Yeah, I wish I could say that I went against the flow and I wasn't all about Wolverine. But I can say that I was a fan of Wolverine before everybody else was.
Wolverine is an intriguing character.
I always liked him.
Yeah.
I can tell you why.
Go for it. Yeah.
Well, the reasons growing up, I liked Wolverine. First off, growing up in Texas, as you know, we didn't really deal with a lot of mountains or stuff, and the sky is so big because there's nothing, right? It's mostly flat. Dealing with Dallas, Fort Worth, and the smog and everything. So I just kind of really liked this idea of this guy, not dealing with the fact that he's super short, although that could probably help him too in certain circumstances.
We're talking about the comic book version, not Hugh Jackman.
Oh, right. Well, he kind of comes off as short in the movies, but he is so tall.
He is very tall.
He really is. So anyway, yeah, the comic book Wolverine. Comic book being short, being a little hairy guy, but having these skills, both martial artists, special forces, the fact that he did Canadian special forces and all that. I was always interested.
He's the best at what he does.
That's right. That's right. And what he does is not very nice.
That's very true.
So I always liked the idea of this guy being, I don't know, it just seemed like he was a man's man. It's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to chop some wood all day, and then I'm going to go home and I'm going to cut a steak with my claws.
Drink lots and lots of beer.
And it doesn't even hurt me because I'm a man, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman against that? No, I'm just saying. But anyway, so it just seemed to appeal to me.
I'm not a huge X-Men guy. Most of the X-Men storylines I find lacking.
Superman. How could you compete?
But I do like Wolverine. Of all of the X-Men characters, Wolverine is super compelling and super cool. He's got
been shot. He's been blown up. He still survives.
He's got like 5 or 6 different origins, though.
Of course. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
He's
his
not going to
origins-
tell you the real true story. He's not. He's going to be like, don't worry about it.
But yeah, Wolverine has some mental health issues. So
Oh, yeah.
let's bring it over to that. So he's
Wouldn't you?
he's
under
got
those
amnesia.
circumstances?
He's got PTSD.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yes. He's got he's got amnesia.
He does.
So what other things do you think Wolverine embodies as a
Well,
superhero?
you know, I'd
for
like to
mental
say
health?
he has bipolar as well, but we really haven't seen those ups. He's like
Jean
permanently
Grey has
down.
bipolar.
Oh yeah, yeah. But that might not just be due to her. That might be due to more Phoenix issues
and
other
outside influence.
yeah. But well, yeah, Wolverine definitely, as you already mentioned, dealing with PTSD, the strenuousness of war, plus everything he experienced growing up. Seeing his parents die, supposedly, family members being relatives, being parents, being not. Lots of confusion, potentially dissociative identity disorder as well. He doesn't remember things. He keeps forgetting because he was kind of there.
When he first meets Professor X in the movies,
Right.
and sometimes in the comic books, he is mostly a monster. He is very feral, very animalistic.
He's leveled out enough to be okay with society. Enough.
And Professor X basically tries to help him through these mental blocks that he has. It's
Right.
basically not all of his amnesia was because of the Weapon X program. Some of it was self-inflicted, basically suppression of memories.
Well, yeah, Wolverine suffers from the same thing almost all of us do at some point. There's things in our past that we don't want to remember, we don't want to deal with. I mean, I'm sure that's the case for everybody, most everybody, and Wolverine is no exception. So Professor Xavier's like, let me help you remember who you are. That way you can be a complete person. That's something we deal with in mental health. We want people to be able to be complete in who they are, but they have to accept what they've been through and not feel like it's their fault. And that happens a lot in mental health.
So I want to go from Wolverine to some other characters.
Yeah.
You like Multiple Man. Do you like Multiple Man?
That was always a secret. I used to have a character that I made when I was a kid, right? We all probably did. You probably had your own character. Mine was named Alto Changeo. And I found the little piece of paper from when I was, 8 years old, and I wrote this character that I made. Anyway, so one of the things he was able to do is to become multiple people as well, and just to be able to look like anybody and be anywhere, and more than him. Like he would develop a partner to fight with, and then
Like a Mystique kind of character.
like Mystique mixed with Multiple Man type thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a weird combination. So it's funny that you bring him up, but yeah, I know who that is.
So when Multiple Man, basically Multiple Man can split himself into two beings and can continue to do that, basically making duplicate clones of himself.
You can always drive in the HOV lane.
Instantly. What this did to him, though, was it would also fracture his personality. Basically, it also would fracture his psyche.
Well, the merging back was never easy. Yeah.
And sometimes there would be multiple men who just were dead. And there would be a dead version of him on the ground. And
I think that's telling, to be honest. If we could split up ourselves, there's some parts of us that are like, I'm just so done. I don't even want to do anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. But, being that this is Suicide Awareness Month, absolutely want to pay attention to that. If friends and family are around and having difficulties, don't let them split into a multiple person. You don't know what's going to happen.
Well, so this is interesting. Each, multiple man would be like a different aspect of his personality.
Sure.
But when I look at when you split up people, for example, there have been cases where the corpus callosum has been split
Right.
into two separate halves of the brain. Your brain is two halves, and they're
left and
connected
right
by this
hemisphere, right.
mesh in the middle called the corpus callosum, which lets it talk to each other.
Sort of. Yeah.
And they used to do a procedure where they would cut it in half.
Right. It's made a big difference with seizure patients when they were having to do the misfiring of electrical activity in the brain.
But then
cutting that would stop that a lot of the time.
Then there's the spooky stuff that happens to a person when that's been cut. For example, if they look at an image with one eye, they can't write its name. Like if they show an animal,
Is that spooky?
they can't write its name, but they can draw a picture of it. But if they look at the same image with their other eye, they can write its name, but not be able to draw its image.
Yeah, we've been actually studying that in our courses as well. One of the things that happened there is certain parts of the brain process certain things. So while your left may be processing your audio, your right may be processing your visual. So while you're able to see an image on the left side of a split screen, on the right side of the split screen, your left eye is going to see that. Therefore, that brain is going to be processing what you're seeing. So you may be able to write what you saw. But if asked, what did you see? You'll be like, I don't know. I didn't see it. But your brain did see it. Your eye caught it, and you're able to write what you saw.
As long as that corpus callosum isn't talking to the other side of the brain.
Right. And of course, once you look down to the page, then you're like, oh, yeah, it was a telephone. I knew that. And the brain is amazing at trying to connect the dots anyway and create a story to make it make sense, because who wants to feel like they don't even know what they're doing or talking about? That seems scary.
I hear that the brain is very malleable. You can actually will your brain to change its structure a bit within reason, of course. But if you like repeat an action or repeat a thought process, you can strengthen those types of areas and thus change who you are in certain ways.
To an extent, yeah. So we've also found that when a certain part of your brain gets damaged, let's say often due to stroke, another part of your brain due to plasticity will allow it to redevelop those same survival needs, like communication or walking, for example. Another part of your brain will take over that and be able to do that. And that plasticity does slow down depending on age, and then you have the myelin sheath, which creates the speed of the connection between the neurons, and that degrades with time. And there's all sorts of things happening in neurobiology, and we're doing all sorts of testing. The corpus callosum issue, that has helped really teach us more about what parts of the brain do and don't do things.
So when I want to bring this back to Multiple Man.
Of course.
So when Multiple Man splits into separate people, they each get like a personality trait. Wouldn't it be more likely that he would get a part of the operating function of his brain? How does that work?
Like one Multiple Man who can only speak, and the other one can
only like draw pictures.
I can only hear you, maybe do some kind of sign language to communicate. No, I think in the particular case of the comic, he was able to do all motor functions pretty easily. That would complicate things. Although we want to take it to the next level, that'd be the way to go. No, personality seems to be fascinating, and how we change even as people over time. You're not the same person exactly the same way you were when you were in your teens.
I'm going to out my political affiliation here, and I used to be a libertarian.
Okay.
And now I am pretty just straight up liberal.
Okay. Well, we love you anyway here at UAA.
And I hear that people who are more conservative, more their brain structures usually are a certain way, and people who are more liberal, their brain structures are usually a different way. And a lot of people like to think of this like, oh, then you're just born conservative or you're born liberal. And I'm like, I changed. So did I change the structure of my brain?
I remember having this discussion with one of my professors. Basically, what we were talking about, what we kind of came to, not that any of this is fully resolved and there's lots of testing still to be done, is that certain people with certain brain or personality inclinations will naturally go in those directions. It's not because your brain is this way, therefore you will have to be. It's not like a predestination thing. It's more of because you're naturally more creative or more liberal, more accepting, whatever, or more conservative, more protective, then you're naturally going to want to go and support those particular parties.
And that kind of thing will strengthen those areas of the brain anyways. Once you start going more towards that way,
the more, like anything, the more you do a thing, the stronger it gets in your head.
Yeah.
Which is why we need to keep practicing everything in our lives. Which is why we need to keep challenging our brains. I hear dancing is one of the most wonderful ways to keep your brain strong as you grow older. So definitely keep keep reading comic books. Absolutely. It's okay to watch TV. Novels. Yeah, it's okay. Just the right timing. Also, sleep is more important than we give it credit for.
So I want to talk a little bit about Beast.
Beast. I love Beast.
He's a philosopher.
Absolutely.
He's a scientist. But he has
Kelsey Grammer in the movie.
One of the movies. There's this certain interesting part about Beast. So
Super
mutants
scientist.
are a part, like they're a minority, and they're hated for being a minority and for having these special powers.
Right.
Beast,
Up to a certain
at
point,
certain
they're minority.
yeah, Beast is, while he's an intellectual and he believes in philosophy and these types of things, he also is very upset that he's a mutant, to the fact that he tried to cure his mutantness and it kind of backfired on him. He became blue and furry and all of that kind of
Which
stuff.
I love him more that way, to be honest. Those unique traits.
But yeah, denying who you are, your sense of identity. And I'm always strong on identity. People, when their identity is threatened, they can do amazingly self-destructive things,
Right.
like Beast did.
Right, yeah. He was trying to force the issue to make himself like everybody else, or how he viewed what was considered quote-unquote normal. And really that identity time where we're really seeking, first comes this group identity where we try to identify with our peers. And that's usually 6 to 13 or so, where we're trying to say, well, I want to fit in before I find who I am. And once we try to fit in with our groups, then there's the individual identity, usually, again, 13 to about 20 or so is where we're trying to find who we really are. Beast definitely would have done well with some counseling. I think we all would, honestly. But that happens more often than not. People are always trying to find their self-identity, and they think they can relate to somebody as what they think is normal. But normal is really not a thing. We're all individual, and we all need to be accepting of each other.
Well, later on, the current Beast, of course, is very much self-accepting and has learned from his
philosophy
mistakes and failures. Colossus.
Oh, yeah.
I think Colossus has a bit of a white knight issue, like good guys never get laid kind of thing going on.
He always has to come in and save everybody.
And save everybody. But to me, I think he does it because he feels like he feels like I do this and I should be owed something a lot of the time.
I don't think he's ever accepted himself as the normality. I think his normality is I have to prove myself, therefore, so that I can be accepted. I mean, Beast has finally accepted himself. Colossus, I don't think he ever really did.
There is a storyline. This is one of my favorite storylines in all of X-Men. You probably read it. It was back in the 80s, 90s. So Colossus and Kitty Pryde, Shadowcat, were a thing. And then they go have this big space adventure, and there's an alien that can make you fall in love with her through her pheromones and such, and entrance Colossus. And Colossus comes back to Earth, and he's like, I'm breaking up with Kitty. I love this alien off on the other planet. And they're like, she bewitched you with her voodoo mind control powers. He's like,
voodoo mind control.
I don't care. I love her. And Wolverine's like, I said, if you're going to hurt Kitty, bad things are going to happen to you. So Wolverine decides to take Colossus to a bar to roll him, give him the beat down. And he ends up not doing this only because Juggernaut walks into the same bar and Colossus picks a fight with Juggernaut, and Juggernaut drops an entire bar on him. And like Wolverine and Nightcrawler are there. Nightcrawler's been trying to talk Wolverine out of doing this horrible thing to Colossus.
Well, yeah, he's the nice guy. Nightcrawler's always Mr. Nice Guy.
But when the Juggernaut comes in, Nightcrawler's like, "Aren't you going to do anything?" He's like, "No, you stay right here. This is exactly what I wanted to happen." But yeah, it feels like, when the chips are down, when it actually does affect Colossus, he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. It's easy to punch a supervillain.
Sure.
But when it comes to like love life and social life and these types of things, he fails the test over and over again.
Well, it brings it back to the idea of what is your mindset of normality, or what is right. In his mind, he's doing what he thinks is right, which is what we often do. But that's not always accepted by the popular public, certainly not. And this was the case here. I mean, people were like, wait a second, you're doing wrong. And he's like, well, to his head and his heart. I mean, just think about how many people follow their heart. And what is that? It's just a muscle. What we say is our heart.
So I know you haven't read the latest kind of X-Men books.
No, I'm not up
In
to
the
date.
in the
Shame on me.
2000s, they tried to change Cyclops. Mm-hmm. So Cyclops has always been the true blue leader guy without much of a personality. He's just handsome and in control. He's the guy who leads, right?
Sure.
Well, after Jean Grey has lived and died multiple times, she's gone out of the picture now. The White Queen takes over the X-Men. What's her name?
Right.
How can I remember her
isn't
name?
it
Emma Frost.
Emma Frost. That's
Emma
right.
Frost. Thank you. She takes over the X-Men, and she starts seducing Cyclops.
I was going to say Emma Stone. That's not right at all.
Emma Stone.
She could be the next White Queen. Just
starts-
dye her hair.
She starts seducing Cyclops. Now, at this point, Emma is trying to be a hero. She's not a villain at this point in any sense.
It's what's right to her at the time.
Yeah. But she does find Cyclops very attractive and does seduce him multiple times and introduces him to
Is that the right word? Seduce? Is that? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
BDSM. Mm-hmm. And in this storyline, Cyclops finds basically a new identity within BDSM. He
Sure.
actually becomes a better person, a person with a better personality, a better outlook on
For
life.
letting out the inner Batman.
Yeah,
That's right.
Through
There's a
sexual
time and
fetishes,
place, sir. There's a time and place.
through this kink that he has.
Mm-hmm.
I know you haven't read this, have you?
No, this is news, but I'm not all that surprised. I'm not all that surprised.
You think Cyclops would just jump right in on that kind of stuff? I think he's reluctant at first.
That's what I would think.
But
he would
after
be.
multiple times, he actually finds a new vision for the X-Men, and people start trusting him more.
Well, there's a correlation between sex and violence, right? I mean, well, there is. Let me tell you, there is. And so you would think he'd have some kind of emotional release through his sexuality, but Cyclops has been traditionally pretty pent up.
That's right.
So-
That's exactly it.
So no, this kind of makes sense. I could see how that could go. And then hindsight's 20/20, right?
I think that this entire storyline, because I used to hate Cyclops, and then he went through this transition with the White Queen, and he became
So now he's human. Now he's
a more human character,
approachable.
He was approachable, and then he went mad with the Phoenix Force, became a villain, and everybody killed him.
Right. So the moral of the story is, kids, if you try BDSM, you're going to become a villain. That's what I think. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
If you dabble with the Phoenix Force, you'll become a villain. That's
the
what
moral.
it is.
Okay, my bad.
But nowadays, the new X-Men are the X-Men from the past that have time traveled to the future and
Right.
are upset with how the future has gone, and they're trying to Cyclops is trying not to become the villain that he eventually becomes, and he's racked with guilt as a kid with this future that may be inevitable. And he's the leader. Is there an X-Men book out? I think there is one X-Men book, but they're trying to downplay X-Men because Fox owns the rights. Gotcha. So Cyclops is now the leader of the Champions, which is basically Marvel's version of the Teen Titans.
Okay.
So it has.
I'm saddened by this whole process.
You are?
A little bit.
You should read. You should read it. It's really good. Actually,
I will. I'll look into it.
It's got Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Miss Marvel, the Kamala Miss Marvel. It has the Totally Awesome Hulk.
Okay.
It has Nova, the new Kid Nova, and it has Cyclops.
Right.
And they come together to form this team, and they're trying to help people around the world, and they're trying to start this We Are the Champions movement. Anybody can be a champion. You just stand up for what's right.
Right. No matter what
Yeah.
nationality, whether you're a
Hashtag
citizen
champions.
of the
Yeah.
world or...
Well, one of the storylines is they go help these people in nondescript, Middle Eastern nation from
Right, that's how it needs
terrorists
to be.
that are trying to make women do what they want the women to do. No, you can't go to school, and they come in with their guns, and then the champions come in and stop them, and yay. Well, that's my time. Thank you, Moses, for
Happy to
being
be
here. I hope you get your show. I hope it turns out all right. You can listen to me on YouTube at Truly Evil Bob on YouTube. I'm at Truly Evil Bob on Twitter. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.